Okay, so now that we got our camera here, let's drop down a ground plane, which workers press tab, type grid, drop that down. We're going to use this not so much to simulate off of, but this will be useful to get a sense of when things are underground, and we'll end up rendering that later also anyway. So I'm just going to increase the scale to 4. That's pretty good. We could probably move this around a little bit to make sure that it's completely covered, but I don't know, it seems okay to me. So something like that, that's fine. We'll call it ground. So I'm going to use, let's set up some kind of, because this effect, as opposed to previous lessons, is going to have a lot more nodes and separate small components than usual. So let's introduce the idea of color coding things. So my color coded system is, and everyone's is different. I like to put green, like a dark green. No, I didn't spell ground right. Dark green for geometry that I would say is so-called helper geometry. Things that will help me accomplish something else. I'll make a red nodes later on, like this. Well, I'll say like ground render. These ones will be red. This will all be stuff that I actually want to render, but I'll know immediately that this is not something I want to render. So what I would end up doing is I would say like, let's go get that helper geometry. I'll just point to that, say into this one to get the full transform. And now this is what will actually be rendered. So let's say I wanted to add some displacement or change it somehow here. I'll do that over here. But it will all be based off of this. Maybe a bunch of simulations will look at this ground, but it will render differently. So it's just nice to keep that compartmentalized. I'm going to turn this off for now. But this will be helpful right now because we're going to want to draw out the path. What do I mean by the path? Well, we want to have a bunch of bullets or lasers hitting the ground coming from somewhere over here. So let's draw a curve, kind of like how we did in Rigids 4. Let's draw a curve so that we can arc direct more or less where these little explosions are going to happen. So I'm going to refer to that as the path. And once again, that's going to be a so-called helper geometry. We're not going to render that. It's not a simulation. It's just going to be something that helps us. So we can just use the same thing that we did last time, which is the draw curve. We'll want to project it onto the ground, which is the ZX plane, as you can see here. And of course, as I click and drag, I get a curve. And you can see like that. The longer you spend to draw the curve, actually I didn't really need to delete that, but when you draw a curve on here, you'll see that it puts it under here in the strokes. We can disable them, we can delete them here. But I'm going to say something like that. Now, that's from the camera's perspective. The thing with that is that when we look at it from up here, it's all stretched out going this way. Probably a machine gun, even a laser machine gun, probably wouldn't really look like that. So I'm going to delete that. Let's, well, I'll do it from here this time. Let's instead look at it from above. Now, if I draw my curve out up here, it's drawing a very rough curve because of the recording going on right now. I'll just say yours will probably look a lot smoother than mine is. And if yours doesn't, you can always drop a convert down, convert it to a NURBS curve, and that should look better. That's from NURBS curve. So convert to NURBS curve, and there we go. Now we have a nice smooth curve, no matter how rough the original one was. But anyway, so let's kill that. If I were to draw this curve wherever I think it's supposed to be, well, that's fine. But now it's like maybe going off the screen, and that's not good. So there's a few ways to make a camera frustum. And for some reason, the way that I've always stuck with it is actually dropping a VDB of all things down, going from camera here you can make a VDB from the camera. So you'll see if we make the farther distance go like that, now we know where the camera can see. And if I put our ground plane back on, we can also see where the frustum passes below ground. So by looking at the top, this triangular area is the visible area. So now, if I were to say, you know, something like this, and I look at it, now we're getting somewhere. We're not getting the weird distortion. We're getting like a more logical movement here. It's not stretched out. It's close to the camera. It's still kind of off the screen. So let's try again. I definitely want to be right in front of the camera here. So something like this. Man, this is really annoying with the filming, making this thing so spread out. All right. I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm going to stop filming for a brief second and just draw it. And then we'll start again. All right. So much smoother. I like it like this. I like the unevenness, and sometimes you get like a little bit of jitter and whatnot. So yeah, sorry to do that off camera, but obviously it's just drawing a curve. Not a big deal. So there it is. So this is maybe something that maybe you'll want to draw where it gets pretty close to the camera. You know, of course, this is going to be our image, so I wanted some space for the explosion to like fly up. And yeah, that's what we got. So I don't think I'll need this after all. And there you have it. We got a curve. I'll put like an out here. Great. So what else do we want for our scene setup? Now that we're getting a sense of things, we've got our camera perspective, we've got our ground, we've got the path more or less that this is going to take. We're going to need to make the place where these lasers are going to fire from in the first place. So let's make yet another helper geometry. We'll just call it launcher, green. And because I don't feel like spending time actually making up a piece of geometry to do this with, let's just have it be like a sphere that's off camera. So, you know, the lasers will fire into the screen. We can probably move this forward a little bit. So something like that. Cool. It doesn't matter actually how big it is. It's just going to fire from the center of it anyway. So let's just make it small again so we don't really see it. So the idea will be that this will be a gun that shoots here, 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 here. You know, it's going to keep shooting from here every time, and it's going to keep hitting along this path on the ground. So good, we got that. What else do we need? Let's make some little size guides. We've done this before when we've done like our dynamics lessons and whatnot. And what this will be is just kind of a visual representation in our scene of like how big a unit is or how big like a smaller unit is. So this is just in terms of things like little details, like when we want to do noise and we say, oh, the noise size should be 0.1. Okay, well, what does 0.1 actually look like in the scene? Well, apparently near the camera, it looks like this. And, you know, far away from the camera, it will look like that. So it's just nice to keep a couple of those guides around. So I'm gonna make this red, just for fun, just so we can see it easier. There we go. So we'll say this is like box 0.1 near. Let's also make one next to it in case we need to go even smaller for certain details. Say like 0.01. That's probably too small. Let's do like 0.05. Let's do half that. So 0.025. Good. So this is a good like medium-sized detail. This is a good small-sized detail. Again, these numbers are going to be used later on just to describe various things like maybe the bump mapping or the turbulence in somewhere or what have you. So I'll say this is 0.25 near. And we want to have a duplicate set of these in the far. So let's just take these and move them. I'll move them this way. Let's say we'll move them backwards in Z. So just keep them back there. Again, not going to render these. We'll make these all green or whatever your color is that you choose. Say far, say far. And we'll even probably just have them turned off most of the time, but that's good for now.